Lovely, we can get started. So going to take a seated posture this evening. And they're going to use the bolster. So for me, quite high up, but obviously, depending on how open your legs are, you might use this regularly anyway. The idea is to try and bring the heels in towards the groin rather than crossing the ankles. And then slide yourself forward enough, just enough so that the shins come down to the ground and support you. So you're sitting really on the edge of the bolster rather than absolutely on top of it. I'm going to try and find a nice neutral position for the pelvis, which usually works out if you wiggle around a little bit, you'll find this sort of happy place. And then just let the spine lengthen up, roll the shoulders back. Think about leveling your head as well as you wriggle out the shoulders and the neck a little bit. And then with the palms on the thighs, we can close our eyes and just breathe slowly. So we are going to purposefully breathe 1.5 or maybe 2 times as slow as we would normally. We'll let the breath come right down from the belly and lift it gently into a sort of constant flow up into the collarbones, and then the same on the outward journey. It just gives us a little bit of a chance to kind of zone in to being on the mat and getting ourselves in the sort of mental prepared state for doing a yoga class. I'm going to swap the bolster for a block. And I'm going to come into butterfly pose. If I can get the block. And for that, I need the soles of the feet to come together. And a distance apart that feels really easier on the thighs. So the groins can open a little bit, but I can still keep the toes touching. And then wriggle onto the front edge of the sitting bones. I'm going to let the chin drop gently down. Allow myself to round the spine. So not really focus too much on going forwards, just a roundness in the spine that I'm looking for. So really slumping down, bringing the chin sort of directly down in between the thighs rather than towards the feet. And if you can, you're going to let your pelvis tilt to the back down towards the floor a little bit. So it tilts away. Well, let the spine sink. Just find a nice place for the shoulders to rest. Initially, as you come into this, your body can naturally try to protect itself, and they kind of hunch around the shoulders a little bit. So see if you can just let those go. Now, once you're happy with the spines and the groins, and you've decided where to place your hands, you can let your head start to sink and drop. And let the back of the neck muscles release completely. Breathing a little bit more into the ribs because the diaphragm is compressed. And again, using that slow breath that we just worked on at the beginning. And I'll slowly let myself lift up. I'm going to come into happy baby pose. And I want to have the bolster fairly close to the side as well, so it's within reach once I'm in happy baby. The strap is there in case you find it tricky when your muscles are a bit cold to bring yourself into happy baby. So you could just draw the knees in, take them wide, and do the strap around the soles of the feet. Take a little bind. Let the feet come out a little wider than the shoulders, wider than the mat. And then just use that to come into your happy baby. Using your weight along with the natural weight of the legs, just bring them into the position that you want. So you could take the knees out as far as you wish, the soles of the feet to the sky. But the important and crucial thing is that you get to relax the lower back completely to the floor, as flat as a pancake. That's the thing that we're looking for. I'm using the strap open. You could make it into a loop and then adjust the size you want. And that sort of makes it even easier to keep the feet in a sort of constant position. So that would be a marginally more secure way of bringing yourself into the pose. Just slowly release. Shoot back down to the front. Move the strap out of the way a little bit. And then take my bolster and place that underneath the back of the pelvis. So crosswise, lift a little. And sort of slide that bolster underneath. And if, like me, you use the block under the back of the head from the previous pose, you would need to move that out. So that your shoulders and spine, neck are more of a sort of straight line. There's not a pressure point in the sort of upper thoracic area, lower part of the neck. You want it to be nicely lined out. You can bring your hands just alongside the body, palms face up if that feels good, or you could take them up towards the sky and then drop them behind you, opening the chest a little more. I've taken the feet as wide as the mat, and I'm trying to encourage the knees to roll into the center. So the rolling in doesn't need to be excessive. The knees certainly don't need to touch. You just want to be at a point where it doesn't feel like the legs are falling out. So however far you need to take them out to get to that feeling. I'm particularly interested in letting the muscles across the belly and into the lower middle back relax into the pose. And it takes a degree of confidence and courage to let go. The spine is perfectly safe here. It just feels a little different. We actually hold on to this area of our spine when we're standing and sitting, to the point where that becomes so normal we don't actually notice this effort. So this is the amount of work that your muscles and your spine are coping with on a daily basis. We'll start to draw the belly in a little bit. Press down through the feet lightly. You feel the buttocks lift first, and then you can start to feel the abdominal muscles tighten, and the lower back starts to join in as well. We've brought the hands back down by the side of your body. You can then move that bolster out to the side and let your spine slowly roll back down to the floor. It always feels a lot further away than you remember it being. So lay the spine down very carefully. Roll gently onto the right side. Use the hands to press away from the floor, come up as smoothly as you can. Going to slide the feet towards the back of the mat and bring myself into a child's pose. But the child's pose, I'm going to use the bolster again and have that directly underneath my body. So my chest and my head are supported. So it's not a super low pose, and it takes a certain degree of roundness out of the lower back. So having just moved from a bridge pose where we relax with those muscles, conscious not to overwork them too much. Coming into the opposite side. We'll be here for about a minute or so to get relaxing it out. It's quite important. Ourselves back up. Now we're going to come into a pose that looks like pigeon pose, but it's called swan pose in the yin practice. And you could use the bolster across the mat underneath the groins if you wished. However, it has as many benefits as it has drawbacks in that you need to get the front foot fairly forward, and that can sometimes be a little bit of a tricky thing to do with the knees and the hips. So the version I'm going to use is starting on all fours with the knees together, and then just sliding my left knee to the outside of my left wrist to bring the heel onto the center line of the mat, which this evening I actually have a center line of the mat, which is quite handy. And then walking the right leg back as far as I can. I'm just going to lift that knee a little off the ground so that I can get the patella into a comfy place. I'm going to let the shoulders roll back a little bit so that when I start to let the weight bear down into the shoulders, they lift directly up towards the sky rather than rolling around the chest. Now, if the wrists start to become problematic, you could do one of two things. You could take it a little higher, and that will put more compression in your lower back by coming up onto the knuckles, making a fist, and having the hands directly underneath the shoulders so the energy line goes down through the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist evenly. Or you could come down further and come down onto your elbows, and either of those would work. So we'll move out of this from wherever you decided to find and bring yourself into. So walk the back foot in a little bit. You can see that that allows me to lift the hips gently, and then I can bring the knees back out. You can stretch the leg out if you need to. Stretch both legs out if you wanted to. I'm ready to bring the knees together, and then just take the right knee to the outside. Right wrist, heel on the center line, walk the back foot down the center line of the mat. So I'm going to lift the knee a little bit, play around with the shoulders, get the hands into the right place. I need to move them forwards a little bit this side. And then again, you've got those choices of staying higher, or going down lower. Head position is really of personal choice. So some people like to look ahead. Some people like to hold their head there but close their eyes. Some people like to allow the head to drop. You can feel that sort of stretching out nicely through the back of the neck. Is what it feels more appropriate, perhaps just listening to the amount of energy that you have this evening and working out where you want to use it. We're ready to come out of this side as well. So again, just walking the toes back, using the way back up, stretching the legs out again. Going to sit back onto the heels for a moment, about the middle of the mat, and I'm going to reach back and find that block. Just bring that towards the toes. Now I'm going to come into a twisted deer pose. So I'm going to bring the hands forwards underneath the shoulders, and I want to place the bootlaces of my feet onto the block and have the knees a little wider than my hips. Then I'm going to spin the feet out, the pivot out towards the right side of the mat, and see if I can lay the right shin into the arch of the left foot as I sit gently back into deer pose. So I'm trying to keep both sitting bones on the floor or on the toes of this right foot pointing towards the back of the mat. Shin runs through the arch of the left foot. Both knees are on the floor here, trying to keep the shoulders as level as I can. You can take a little breath from there and take the left arm around and just start to find the sort of inner face of that right elbow. Bring the right hand onto the thigh. Allow the body to turn gently towards the left. Walk the right hand as far forward as you can, whilst looking over the rear shoulder. And again, doing that with trying to keep both sitting bones down on the ground. So it is a bit of a stretch. We are looking for a degree of relaxation into here. The arm bind can be quite strong, so be careful you don't pull on that too much. You're just using it as a way of drawing the left shoulder back and then a little more into the center line of the body. And we'll release, let ourselves out. We come back up onto all fours, untangle the legs and bring those bootlaces back down onto the block. Okay, just taking the knees a little wider than the hips. This time I pivot the feet out to the left. Allow myself to sit gently back. Play around a little bit, get into a nice comfy position. When you're ready, going to take that right arm around, Find the front edge, that left elbow. Walk the hand out along the thighs, you turn the body. I'm trying to have the spine as like a spiral, but vertical to the floor. So we're conscious of not leaning out forwards or backwards or sideways. We're trying to relax the back shoulder down. So again, if you've pulled a little more aggressively to get into the pose and you're unable to relax, you might need to forego holding the elbow, maybe just taking the hands into the back of the belt of the trousers would work. Or at least from there as well. And let ourselves lift up. I'm going to bring myself up onto all fours and bring the knees together so they touch. I'm going to slide the left knee forwards and cross the leg over. So I want the thighs to be pressing into each other. I'm going to try and take the feet out as wide at the mat, if not wider, as long as it feels comfortable in the knees and the hips. And then I'm going to slowly see if I can sit back down, and hopefully that block isn't too far away, and I can just bring that underneath my sitting bones. So cow face legs, sitting up nice and tall. Taking the breath. Now, assuming that you're happy with the legs in this position, you can fold forwards. If it doesn't feel good in the legs, but you would still like to fold forwards, I would suggest that the bottom leg would then be extended out and you'd actually move off the block. So the leg is flat to the floor, and then you can look after the back of the knee joint. If you're able to sit on the block or directly on the floor, if that's comfortable, allowing yourself to roll the spine gently down over the thighs, letting the head hang. So there's a big stretch. You could use that bolster and bring that forwards. You could even allow the head to rest against that. Or you could just simply bring the elbows to rest on it. So not down quite so low. It's actually time to lift back up. Slide that bolster out. Use the hands to lift up. And then untangling the legs, stretching them out again. Now prepare to come into the second side. So those knees come together on the center line. The right leg comes forwards, crosses over. Thigh squeezes into thigh. Take the feet out wide, have a little wriggle round. And then slowly sitting back. So just want to make sure the knees and the ankles feel okay as you come into this. If it feels like something is painful, then certainly need to think about taking the option of taking that bottom leg out as we discussed. When you're ready, allow yourself to start to come forwards. Again, you can use the bolster for elbows. You can just allow yourself to use your hands on the floor, so maybe only being halfway down or less. Or you may be able to come down a lot lower. It's important not to assume that you're going to get to the same place on both sides. And always ease yourself in. Literally relaxing the body weight down, and as much as you can do that, you'll feel the stretch through the hips and the thighs. Come forwards from that pose, moving the bolster off the side, untangling the legs. So this time I'm going to use the hands to draw the legs out towards the front of the mat. Give them a little shake out. And allow myself to just wiggle that little bit off of the block and move it out to the side so the legs can be flat and straight. I'm in Dandasana pose. The hands are down by the side of the body. Toes flex back a little bit as I squeeze the thighs into the center line. And we'll slowly roll the feet back in, across the ankles and roll onto the knees and come up to all fours at the front end of the mat. But really, however you can get onto all fours is the thing that counts as you arrive. And I'm going to allow myself to roll and roll the spine out a little bit from side to side. So just getting a little bit of juice into the wrists and the shoulders, swaying the tail from side to side. And then I come back into a neutral spine and start to take some cat-cow. Just rolling the shoulders back a little bit as I lift the chest forwards, tailbone up towards the sky, keeping the belly in. On the exhale, I can draw the belly in even deeper and press into the hands and knees. Inhaling forwards, tilting the pelvis, rolling the body through. Exhaling out. And then we'll come into a neutral spine and just tuck the toes underneath and lift ourselves gently into a down dog. So we'll take the knees back and then up with the hips and just walk the feet out a little bit more to get more comfortable position in my down dog. You can certainly pedal the legs out if you wish, or you can be still, just keeping the heels hiding behind the ankles, letting the tailbone lift up and the chest drop down. Now come forwards. Knees come down to the floor. Take a little breath. Just stretch back into child's pose. Walk fingers as far forward as I can, so the fingertips are on the floor, palm of the hand is away. Now the head is touching the ground, but it is relaxing down in that direction. Take one breath here. Inhale the next breath, I'll just walk the hands back again. And allow myself to take my trusty block again, lift up, pivot the knees out, sorry, feet out to the side, and let the legs come back out in front. Going to take a seated twist this time, just drawing the flesh round gently. That left leg comes under, out towards the right hip. Knee points forwards, right leg comes across and the knee is higher. Tilt the pelvis deliberately forwards. I'll let that left arm come up and over, rotating towards the right side. From there, I can release the legs back out, cross to the opposite side. Release from there. And just cross the ankles over, whichever way feels good. The arms around the shins, allow myself to round the spine as I drop the head, drawing the knees in towards the body. So just a little bit of a seated hug. Take a few breaths here. Now for a release. The legs out in front. So draw the right heel into the groin, knee down to the floor, so that it doesn't get down easily. You pack it with the bolster underneath, so it's got something to press in. Turn the thigh inwards, a little bend in the knee, hands onto the shins, lift up. Pull the shoulders back. I'm going to hinge at the hips, allow myself forward, slowly forwards. I'm going to take the hands to wherever it feels comfortable. I'm not using them to pull myself forwards. It's just a resting place for the hands to be. So they could be right on the top of the shin, or on the floor, or stretching out towards the foot. Still using a healthy bend into the back of this leading leg. That hamstring hasn't had a lot of opportunity to stretch out. Release, let myself lift up. And then simply take it over to the other side. Square the hips, pack the leg if you need to, rotate the thigh in a little. Lift up, allow yourself to slide forwards. Find that comfortable position. Try not to let the head drop down so that you're looking towards the back of the mat. Eyes look down towards the floor or they look towards the front foot. So that the spine is able to lengthen out. And the radiator's on, still getting cold toes. Take a little breath from here and let ourselves lift up. Roll over those ankles again and move gently, block to the side, coming on to all fours. I tuck the toes underneath and move myself into a down dog shape. And bring the right knee in towards the chest. Bring the foot through into lunge and drop the back knee down onto the floor. Allow myself to walk the back foot as far back as I can, keeping the front knee over the ankle. And then I'll lift gently up onto that front thigh. Rest the forearms there. Draw the abdominal muscles in and try and lift the chest up out of the pelvis. And let the hands come back down to the floor, wrapping around that front foot a little bit. Lifting the back knee and dropping the heel in, ready for warrior two. Come onto the fingers first. Make sure you feel happy with the balance and the sense of feeling in the groin. Then bring the hands onto the front thigh and let yourself lift up slowly into your warrior two. Just taking the hands out gently, relaxing the shoulders, pressing down into the back foot. Now bring the hands back in towards the heart and rotate gently down to the floor. Step back into down dog. I'm going to bring that left knee in. Put the back knee down. Walk the foot as far away as I can. Again, being conscious to keep the knee over the ankle on the front foot. And then using the forearms to lift up onto the front thigh, I gradually draw myself up. Drawing the belly in, I'm going to try and lift the chest. So progressively, less and less weight, feeling like it's pressing down into the forearms. You notice that as you lift the spine out of the pelvis, strange enough, it makes the front leg feel like it's doing more work. And again, I bring the hands down to the floor. Lift the back knee away from the ground and then tuck the heel onto the ground, ready for warrior two. Hands come onto the thighs. I leave the fingers away from the floor. Check your knees over your ankle. A little bit of weight into the back foot. Take the hands out, relax those shoulders, turn the chest to the side of the mat. Keep the groins open so that front knee moves towards little toe territory as you turn your chest into the long side of the mat. Bring the hands back in towards the heart. Slowly bring them down to the floor. Take a little breath. Step back into that down dog. And the hips high. I'm going to bring the knees back down to the floor and just sit onto the heels for a moment. And I'm going to take my block towards the front of the mat. So that's now in a portrait position. And going to take my bolster, zip side down, and just put that so that I've got a little bit of a ramp there. I want to the end of the bolster to be sort of on the end of the block underneath. And in my case, I'm going to turn to the side that's closest to the screen so you can see what I'm doing first of all, but whatever works for you. I'm going to have at least a hand's gap in between the bolster and the hip. So I'm going to use as a measurement from the little finger to the thumb stretched out. That gives me plenty of time and space because I've got a long body. I'm going to lean onto this, and I obviously want to make sure my head is supported. So first of all, I'm going to start to turn my body towards the bolster, and I want my hip bone to be lining up with the center of the actual bolster. So lean across, and I take both hands to the floor and then bend the bottom leg so that the knee is bent 90 degrees. The thigh points out to the side and the shin runs down the line of the mat. We continue to turn the chest in towards the bolster and slide the top leg out towards, back towards the center line of the mat. Now my knee is still off the ground, so as I bend another 90 degrees in there, I can get that knee down to the floor. You can start to adjust your chest round towards the bolster. So it takes about a minute to get into the pose, and then I'm going to let the chest lie down. We're trying to get the chest as flat to the bolster as we can. Now, your head wants to be sitting on the bolster as well. Once you're in position, you can move the hands to wherever is a comfortable place for you to be. For the shoulders, so some people like the elbows down on the ground. Some people put hands across the bolster and use that as a way of holding themselves up. I'm going to have to move a little bit awkwardly for me, just so that the microphone doesn't jam into my ear. I'm going to try and let the body relax down. Certain parts of the body relax, it becomes more apparent that other parts of the body are hanging on. So I'll start to focus on those and see if I can let those relax as well. We've been here for a minute or so. You might find that you need to, when you benefit, you're just wriggling the body around a little bit. And some small adjustments. Feel contained. Restricted. It doesn't feel like you can move in any direction that you chose. You just happen to not choose. Come out of that. Just slowly bring the hands back underneath. Exhale. Press very gently away from the floor to lift up. And untangle the legs to sit up. Now you could switch directly over to the opposite side. I'm going to move the bolster and the block so that I can see the clock for no other reason than that. Again, we make sure we got this nice hands distance. Allow ourselves to slowly turn in. Sweeping the top leg back. A little bend. Still taking a little time to turn the body in, not collapsing down straight away. I want this to be easy on the nerves in the lower back. As I exhale, let myself to sink down. Again, find a nice, easy place to be. Hands there, find an easy place to sit and reside. We'll be moving again in about a minute's time just to wriggle out any potential stopping points we find. And we'll try and let the chest roll down square to the ground. Taking that wriggle again. Wonderful thing about these buckwheat filled bolsters is they do mold into your body as the minutes go by. So we'll slowly start to lift again from this side, and the hands underneath. Pull the shoulders back and exhale to lift up slowly. Now you could take a supported chest opening pose at this point. In regard to taking the final relaxation. Or you can come simply down into your Shavasana. So if you've got that blanket ready and the cushions, make yourself feel comfy. Let yourself move in easily. I'm going to remain seated because there's a very good chance I would fall asleep otherwise this evening. A long day. So I'll just watch the clock and let you rest. I'm going to loosen the jaw, close the eyes. And we'll start to breathe a little deeper. Those wrists, ankles, fingers and toes to begin to move. Letting the body feel that it's reconnected with itself. And sort of stretch out in any way that feels good. And then when you're ready, you're going to slide your feet along the mat in towards your bottom. And then gently take a knee at a time in towards your chest and give yourself the lightest of hugs. Keeping the spine flat on the ground. Rolling on the spine a little or rolling the hips, whatever feels good. And then when you're ready, we'll roll gently onto our right side and stay there for a few breaths until you feel you've gathered yourself, kind of worked out where you are in terms of your body and on the mat. And then when you're ready, slightly use your fingers to press into the floor from the side and again move up slowly and smoothly, keeping that nervous system working at a low level, unexcited, rested. From the seating position of choice, whatever feels comfortable to you, put the hands coming towards your heart. Just close your eyes, taking a breath in. You slowly begin to exhale. Let the chin come to the chest. Let the belly draw into the spine. Bow simply to the floor, sealing your practice. When you inhale, lifting the spine up with the breath. And finally lifting the head. Namaste. Thank you for coming this evening. Hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you on the mat again soon.